Okay, hello, hello. And let people to come in. Welcome, everyone. We will give a couple minutes for everyone to join. It is 1 p.m. Central here in downtown Chicago. Hopefully, it is very nice where you are. We are a little cloudy, but it is summer. Let's see. Okay. And just put up my slide while we're letting people file in. We're expecting a good number today, a good turnout. So it's going to be nice to see everyone. Let's see. Let me know when you guys can see my screen, Brighthive team. Are you able to see my screen? All right. Let's see.
I think it's taking a moment to load in, Suzanne.
It does that. Let's see. I'm going to try it again. Let's see. Welcome, everybody. Let's see, we give it's 1:01, so we'll give a couple more minutes and figure out. Let's see. Okay, let's try this again. I don't know why it isn't showing my slide deck, but let's try it again. Great, we're getting good turnout here at 12. We're expecting double that. Welcome, everyone. It seems like from many different places. So let's see. Okay, let me try it again. Let me know, Will, when you can see my slide.
Oh, I can see. Hold up. Popped up for a sec.
Something coming up?
Yep, it's just loading in. I can see your slide. Perfect. Welcome,
Fantastic.
everyone. It's good to see you.
Right, so I think we can go ahead and start. And then as people are coming in, we will welcome everyone as well. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for making time to tune in this month's webinar for Brighthive. We're running these monthly and we'll soon be doing them on a weekly basis starting in the fall. Thanks for making the time and joining us, and welcome if you are returning. Some of you are coming to see what we're up to and how we've evolved in the last couple of months. So I am Suzanne Elmorsi, co-founder and CEO of Brighthive, along with my co-founder and CTO, Matt Gee, and our head of GTM, go-to-market and growth, William Kim. So welcome. We're calling in from downtown Chicago, where we're headquartered, and we see in the registration people are from all over the world. So it gets us really excited. Initial considerations, sit back, relax, enjoy this 1 hour webinar. We have a lot to share. We've been quite busy in the last 6 months, building up so much of Bright Agent and Brighthive its capabilities, and Matt's going to be going in a lot of detail to show you the future of agentic data engineering workflows. We will be sending the recording to everyone, so you will get it, and also you'd be able to reach out and engage with us at info@brighthive.io, send questions, feedback. Happy to get on the phone or get on another Zoom and walk through any questions if we don't get to them today. But we do very much invite you to engage with us. We love these to be interactive. The best webinar sessions we've had where they really feel like a conversation among a community of like-minded people. And we are here to really address any of your feedback and questions live in this session as we are demoing. So a little bit about Matt and I. We are two data nerds, two technical nerds, two U Chicago nerds. This is where we met, longtime friends, and really the best pair, I believe. One of my favorite people in the world. We've been building Brighthive for nearly 6 years now together. We are very proud of what we're about to show you. We're on a mission to help everyone that is in the data space work differently with their data. We believe in the power of agentic data workflows. We believe in the power of agentic AI. Well before you even woke up to ChatGPT on your phone in November of 2022. So we've been building this platform and this vision much earlier than 2022 and where we are today. Therefore, our vision for the future of data work, as you'll see today, is rich with capability and it's rich really with not ideas that are not grounded in practicality, but really from our trade, from our intention to solve this problem, which is data work is difficult and time consuming. And we've both experienced it differently in our careers before Brighthive and founding it. So it's coming from a place of really believing that the world needs a platform like ours, and the world needs Bright Agent, our product that Matt will show, to make data work much more efficient. And the time is now because the data is still dirty and it's still unusable. AI requires clean data. It is essential. You're not going to get good AI adoption or good AI outcome if your data is dirty. So the challenge is in the way that we have our most important asset, our private asset, our data. And our intention here is to make data work delightful, make data work easier, and really power every company with AI-ready data that is clean, that is usable, that is governed. So AI adoption today and going forward is much more successful for every single company. That's what's driving Brighthive from day one, and I would believe to until the very end. But first, we'd like to hear a little bit about you. And so we have a couple of very easy icebreaker questions that will bring up to ask you. And please engage with us and tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. So I just queued up the first poll. You guys should be seeing it. I think one thing we're really interested about is at what point in your journey of AI adoption you are. I think, everyone believes the world's headed towards AI. So how prepared do you feel? What are you guys doing to get to that spot? And if not, what do you feel could be, breaching the gaps between that? Again, feel free to just shoot out anything in the chat or ask any questions. Raise your hand. We're very open to hearing that. So just gonna
Yeah,
let you collect some answers first. Yeah.
this is looking good. Look at that. Yeah, scaling AI in production across teams. Yeah. That's kind of at parity with experimenting pilots. That's very true. I mean, the market is definitely moving from experimenting to scaling. This was not the case with our first couple of webinars over the last couple of years. I think, Matt, you would agree it was mostly experimenting and not believing. But now we are seeing full production, and we work with our current customers, our prospective customers in our pipeline, where it's not a question of is AI here to stay? Are we going to need it? The question really is, where is AI most valuable, most effective, most necessary, really? So this is good. So we're landing at about almost everybody here is almost half is scaling AI in production across teams. Any comments on this, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see that we've got a distribution among folks that are here, and the fact that so many of you think I'm so gratefully glad to hear that some of you have like made it all the way to scaling AI in production across teams. I know one of the things that we're seeing and experiencing with a lot of our partners and customers is that okay, when you hit there, uh, that's actually when you start to, run into some of the challenges that we're going to be talking about today, which is you want the kind of whether it's a straightforward chatbot that you've rolled out, or you're integrating Claude Code or Codex, or you've built your own custom agents that are automating or supporting kind of workflows within your context. All of those increasingly rely on your own enterprise data and you're having to, I imagine, deal with the dual challenges of making sure that the kind of it's not garbage in, garbage out, that that the context around that enterprise data and the data itself are reliable enough to be used in those AI-enabled workflows. And you're having to govern now these new kind of sometimes squirrely bots running around, and especially as you scale, figuring out how to do things like cost optimization and governance of
Mhm.
agent workflows, especially when they're touching enterprise data, whether it's read only or actually doing read writes. So I'm just glad to see there's a full distribution here and excited about the conversation we're going to be able to have together about it.
Awesome.
Super. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Let's go on to the next poll question, I think. We would love to know where everyone is coming to us from. So feel free to answer. I know previous webinars, we've had people from all around the globe reach us. So I know especially now that it's afternoon in Chicago, might be late at night for some others. We really appreciate you for joining us, or maybe early in the morning. So yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Great. All right. People are still kind of letting it. We saw in the registration quite a bit of from literally Brazil to Cairo and many places in between, and in the United States from West Coast to East Coast. So this is an important topic, and we like that. We feel it's pretty important ourselves, but we're biased, of course. Great. All right, we have probably we can go on to the next question.
Let's see, and
Yeah.
let's see where
Where are people
people coming to us from.
coming
Let's see,
in?
we have Atlanta, Stacy from Atlanta, Shesh Kumar from Pittsburgh, Walt from San Francisco. We got Salt Lake City, Nashville, and of course Chicago. So it's a lot of great places.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And our final question?
Final question is. Yeah, we're just curious to see what industries you guys are in, and of course what how AI and specifically an agentic harness within your data journey in your industry can be helpful. Especially we have clients from all industries, all different sectors, so just kind of curious, where you guys are, what you guys are focused on, what you're passionate about. Yeah, so a lot of healthcare, life sciences, see some tech, consulting, okay, education. That's good. Oh,
I
and
love it.
media. Awesome. That's cool. Love media.
Will's background is in media, so he's
Yeah.
biased there.
I used to be I used to be a production associate. So that's very cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Any surprises, Matt? Because I got to see
No,
those before.
it's great. We've got a interesting distribution of folks. I'm really, I'm excited to hear kind of what given given the differences in backgrounds, like what's the same and what's different. We certainly work across these different industries and supporting customers, and we see like some data problems or data problems, whether they're in healthcare or in education. And other things are just super idiosyncratic to
Right.
the nature of interacting with health IT systems or student information systems, um, or CRMs that are more common in tech. So
Mhm.
I'm excited as we dig in to really hear and have folks who are attending be able to share what some of the common challenges are that they're running into that really kind of span across the particular industry or domain you're working in.
Right. Absolutely. And, this brings us to the problem we solve before we start seeing um, more of the demo. Really, the problem we're solving is regardless of these wonderful industry, regardless of which industry you're in, which they're all really data rich, we always say, but they're not AI ready. The data is data rich. You're not AI ready as an organization. The problem we solve is that data work, regardless of the industry. Data is data. It's time consuming and it's exhausting. So, from our perspective, what is our mission is to really give you the best way in these current times in this AI era, the most productive, the most efficient way for you to get this grunt work. We often call ourselves the data plumbers because that's really what you'll see today where Bright Agent is. It's in your plumbing to do all the cleaning, the managing, the governing of data across your entire life cycle end to end. This is something that you have to do. The reality of it is it's always been done that way by human beings. So what would the world look like if you had the most complete harness of data agents working alongside you as a data practitioner, as a data engineer, to do all of this grunt work continuously so you're freed up as a data engineer to focus on the high value, high human intelligence tasks, right? So essentially, when you think about what we're about to share and what Matt will walk through, our vision is that this agentic data team, it's not one agent, it's seven, a supervisor team orchestrating six data agents that are working across the data lifecycle in the same way that a team of seven human beings would work in a data engineering team. How do we replicate that in an agentic harness that takes an end-to-end full coverage of data lifecycle to give you clean data, to monitor and heal those brittle pipelines, to maintain the context within that data. Every data has story and it has a context that in the practical kind of human world lives in our conversation in our heads. How do we bring that so that agents have the same context as humans? Therefore, they're giving you the right answer and hallucination is almost non-existent. And how do you also control the token spend? So Matt will speak about this too. We're at a point in AI adoption where people care about the cost of it, right? And token maximization, token usage. This is all very scary for CFOs. They need to know the line item in the budget. How much is this going to cost? And so token optimization is also part of our harness. Now, as we get into before kind of going into the full demo, we find technical people understand what a harness is. But in every webinar, we don't want to assume that people's definition of, so obviously a harness is very known in the software engineering world, a harness in the data world. What does that look like? And so this presentation or this slide is showing you what we mean by harness. Specifically, what is the Brighthive AI harness? What are the layers in this harness and why these are the right layers and they work together to give you something that is complete and of the highest, most quality. So Matt, if you'd like to just briefly set the stage before you go into the demo to explain, this is a big part of our differentiation. It's not an agent that's doing a million things and is a generalist. This is a systemic organization here and flow and logic that we've built into the harness and how the agents at the top benefit from that.
Yeah. So I imagine, given the relative sophistication of folks that have dialed in, we've got folks who are used to interacting with agent harnesses now at this point in time. And you've probably also, if you're like me and Suzanne and William, you're following AI news and AI trends closely enough to have heard things like loop engineering and graph engineering as ways, as kind of modalities within agent harnesses. But you can really think about you've got the core LLM or set of LLMs that you have that is the core intelligence of any AI system. Uh, but there's a lot of code around that model that makes it perform better at specific tasks or categories of tasks. So if you've used something like Claude Code or Codex, you've interacted with a harness that's been built by one of the frontier labs. Or if some of you have worked with things like LangChain or LangGraph, you may have even built your own harness components. But you can really think about it as, what are the memory systems that allow the LLM to persist? Because LLMs themselves have, goldfish memories. They don't remember session to session. So you have to have things that both bring in and manage the context around whatever you're working on. When it's a coding agent, it's the code base. But for data, we know that that memory and that context is a lot trickier. You can't load an entire data warehouse into the context of an LLM. It overruns it. Even these larger context windows of a million tokens, just you can't fit your warehouse. And so you can't kind of load it in and say, okay, now write correct SQL queries for me. You have to have, so if you want a data agent harness to work well, you have to solve a bunch of really interesting challenges of how to compact that context, how to ensure the metadata is associated with the right data assets in your data estate. And so you notice here in this big green box, it's a big part of what we've focused on building out with BrightAgent and the Brighthive platform is smart context management for data workflows in our agent harness. And we're proud that it's the kind of first leading and open harness for data agents. But you'll notice here it's got a bunch of things in there, things like a knowledge graph where what it learns over time about your particular data state continues to mature and becomes kind of an exobrain next to the LLM about your specific enterprise's kind of data assets, their relationships, et cetera. Because we know as a data professional myself, so much of the folk knowledge around data right, isn't even in the table names or the field descriptions. It's in people's heads and PDFs and like really documented code books that are kind of scrolled away. And so one of the core things you see in that green box is the ability for our agent harness to learn and remember and update things about your data state across user sessions, as well as having user level specific memory. So be able to know who you are, that you're a database admin, or that you're a data steward, or you're a business owner, and that you might have different preferences and uh, uh, different data assets that you're the primary steward over. There's a lot more in that memory and context layer that will show when we actually show aspects of the platform. But no, that's a big thing that's going on under the hood to make these many agents work across ingestion, data quality, governance, data engineering, analysis, and reporting. In addition to that, uh, you've probably seen in the news recently that, man, AI is getting these models are getting so clever that they're doing things. They're breaking out of their sandboxes and hacking into other folks other folks' systems just to cheat on the tests that they're being evaluated against. So guardrails from an enterprise standpoint are becoming increasingly important, and guardrails, as we all know, have always been important around data access and use. And so when we think about the possibility of having an agent interact with your enterprise data, you have to have strong guardrails on access use, RBAC for at the permission level and at the agent level. We'll go into this a little bit more, but we have a policy-specific agent who acts as a kind of a secondary data cop that makes sure that as the agents are interacting with your data systems, that they're in compliance with your policies, as well as strong deterministic rules for things like our access control and separate architectural approaches like separating data planes. And then lastly, because you've probably heard of things like loop engineering, I just want to name this briefly, a big part of the Bright Agent harness and of any harness is the ability for an agent to do longer running tasks with feedback loops. So to be able to take the outputs, what it does is what it's in that orange below. Um, Take the outputs, look at them, and say, okay, what do I do next? And we have a variety of different ways that this is done with dynamic seals of memory, workflow updates, but also something we call Night Agent that allows the agent to essentially look at the logs from the data logs, et cetera, over the past day, really try to understand what's going on in your data state and kind of work overnight to make sure that any monitoring is up to date and proactively fixes things. And we'll show you some of that self-healing of pipelines in our demo. So all of that is going on under the hood. You're going to see aspects of it in the UI, but know that so much of the work is actually in the harness that allows these things to happen. And these are things that you actually have direct control over. As an open harness, we give you that the kind of enterprise confidence that you need to be able to really hold the reins on your data agent deployment. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just go and share my screen if that's all right. Suzanne, are we up
Yep, let's do it.
for
Thank
that
you
being
for all of
next?
that. Yes, absolutely. So let's show you, show, don't tell, right? All of this
Great.
powerful work of
And we
agent.
haven't had any questions come in yet, have we, from
I
what
have
we've
not
shown?
seen that.
No, the Q&A is open. So yeah, again, if there's any questions, please feel free to just shoot them in. And then I'll bump just see if we have any interest about any parts of what we're about to show. Yeah, if you guys are curious about anything, just please ask.
Terrific.
Excellent. And as I'm sharing, really curious, you can put it in the Q&A too, just what some of your biggest pain points are that you're facing
Yep.
as we share out. So I'm going to share, this is going to be a play in 4 acts, and going to really show how the Brighthive platform and Bright Agent as a harness really helps you across 4 different aspects of your data workflows. First is actually just getting your data house in order or organizing all of your data assets across that are often marbled within, you know, a bunch of different raw sources, all the way to an enterprise data warehouse that's clean and tidy and never has any problems, I'm sure. Um, and so we'll talk a little bit about how Bright Agent helps you organize your data estate if you're earlier in your data maturity, or you're in the middle of a big migration. You're having to move from on-prem to cloud. How can it help you get organized and stay organized? Second, how can it help you in the work of building uh, uh, new data models and data pipelines? This is intense work, we know. So how can Bright Agent work across your data platforms as a data engineering companion? Third, we'll talk about how it can help monitor um, and and maintain healthy data pipelines and healthy data quality dynamically. And then fourthly, how it can help you diagnose and fix whenever there's data downtime or data issues. So I'm going to be demoing from this hypothetical company called Impact Capital. And I'll start with just a little note about how the Brighthive platform and Bright Agent gets connected to all of those different systems and data states. So you'll notice here that that this particular workspace has three warehouses connected. It's got a SQL Server, an on-prem SQL 2019, and then an Azure Marketplace. Or Azure Synapse Data Mart. This welcome screen has a number of things on here that we can come back to that gives a general sense of the number of warehouses, databases, schemas, tables, etc. And importantly, uh, will allow for, once everything is set up, for me to understand my overall data health. You can think of this as my Fitbit tracker for my data estate. Things like how many data quality checks are running against my warehouses, how many of my tables have robust embeddings that are searchable by AI, and human descriptions and schemas, data contracts, etc. All of this are kind of is a layer of observability that you immediately get as soon as you connect your warehouse or data sources to the Brighthive platform. And you can connect all those things. You can say, okay, great, I want to connect. If you've got a data warehouse, you can go ahead and add warehouses. We support every major cloud warehouse as well as on-prem. And you can add multiple warehouses. You can also support connect to ingestion services and transformation services like dbt Cloud, or if you're in the Azure space and you're doing more on-prem, things like SSMS. And importantly, if you have a bunch of raw sources that you're still dealing with, you're like, hey, I'd love for us to have an organized data warehouse, but we really are just bringing stuff from HubSpot. We have the Brighthive platform can also help you connect to those raw sources and bring those into the data warehouse, wherever that data warehouse might be, with both in helping manage your ingestion service and your ETL service, as well as having over 600 connectors on the platform out of the box, like MongoDB or MySQL or ActiveCampaign or HubSpot or Salesforce. So all of those connections to your warehouses, to your raw sources, etc., can be set up here. They can be set up manually or agentically. You can work with Bright Agent to do that. And as soon as you get that connected, a number of things happen to help you organize your data. One of the things that happens is that metadata immediately gets generated. So we can look at a data set. So I'm going to spend a little time with this data set today, but then look at this holdings data set from Impact Capital. It's got holding IDs, it's got instrument, it's got quantity, asset class, etc. And importantly, as soon as it's connected, Bright Agent will actually write and author a data quality check using great expectations or generating expectations. Now we'll show this dynamically too, how you can do this. You can do it on the fly, interactively with Bright Agent. But note that all I had to do was connect my warehouse, and it immediately starts to generate this metadata, starts to auto tag PII, runs an initial, writes and runs an initial set of quality checks. And if I want, I can schedule these quality checks. So I can say I actually want I want to uh, add a data quality check to this data set because when I first ingested it 16 days ago, this is where it's at. But I actually want to run this data quality check every night. So I can schedule those. It will be generated proactively for me and then monitored on an ongoing basis. So you'll notice here we've got a couple of issues. Like everything looks good in terms of holdings, portfolio ID, but we've got a couple of challenges. We've got this market value. Seems like a pretty important column for our holdings data set, and the weight. And both of these are all nulls. So we've got an upstream problem with the raw data source, likely before it goes to staging, that we need to resolve. Now, the nice thing is, Bright Agent went ahead and flagged this for me automatically just in making the connection to my warehouse. It ran this data quality check, flagged it, and provides actually some initial actions. So all this happens just through initial setup and connection. I'm going to skip over just
And just before you
oh, yeah,
move
go ahead.
off, Matt, you just think
Sure.
about that. Just pause here and let's think about the kind of the impact of this, right? Doing data work in the old day or even today without a Bright Agent versus having Bright Agent in your tool stack and having it run this observability and data quality check continuously while you sleep, right? Until this moment being that we've built this wasn't happening so automatic and so autonomous and so consistently, right, and surfacing what the problems are. It is driven by people, which means it took a lot more time, and much of that time is just maintaining things, just answering the question, is this data set good enough to work with? But spending hours to answer that question versus starting your day looking at this quality report or the observability dashboard that Matt showed, to walk away from answering the questions, but really seeing, okay, if there is a problem, how chronic is it and is it fixable, right? So just talk about that transformation, right? Going from hours and days of trying to figure out a question around quality to be given the answer immediately with your coffee in the morning, right? Here's the quality that you're dealing with today.
Looks like we got some. What's the historical window of the first run cold start data quality check? Is it full table, partial sample? Great question. Yeah. So you can certainly dial up or down the window at cold start when you first connect. What it's going to do is it actually writes a set of data quality checks. I'm actually going to briefly show this to you. So I can say, like, all right, I've identified this issue um, with the staging. So I want to look upstream. I want to say, okay, I'm getting these raw holdings nightly. So let's actually create a data quality check that's aware of those downstream uses in staging, and help me understand, what might be going on, and explain your work, right? So explain what you chose and why. So what it's going to do is you'll see here we've got our kind of main Bright Agent supervisor. You can think of this as the kind of smartest agent that really can delegate to other sub-agents like the data quality agent that has specialized set of skills for writing data quality checks. And one of the sets of skills that it can write is against your warehouse, and it supports all major warehouses. It can write great expectation code. So it's actually going to write Python to run an expectation or set of expectations against the raw holdings nightly table. Um, and by default, the expectations will actually it's expectation by expectation, but each expectation by default will run on the whole table. So if you want to sample a subset, you actually have to explicitly either state that. You can edit the code directly if you want, or you can let Bright Agent know, like I did in the prompt, when you're asking it to run a data quality check, to simply do it on the sample. You can also set some smart defaults. While this is running, I'll actually show you some defaults. So it's come up with an initial set of expectations. I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead, run those expectations. Um, while it's running, I want to show you a quick thing, which is one of the things you can do is you can say, I actually want all of the data quality checks to always be, partial or sampled rather than full table because we have large data sets and I'm not worried as much about kind of rooting out the data quality issue of like row by row. I just want to make sure that on average it's following this particular distribution. So I could say like data quality check rule, always use sampling. And what I've done here, I've actually got to write a little bit more because this is the context file. Here we go. Impact.
Now, I'm assuming everyone understands the context. Where Matt's typing here is in the context section of our platform. This continues to what he was saying when we were showing the harness slide. Everything from this point going forward for agents to perform, any kind of agents, any company, is really dependent on how good of context it has to refer to and use. And so in this case, we're adding these data rules because think of them as instructions, or the more specific you are in the context, this is what it uses and looks for to actually execute the work. Otherwise, it doesn't know, so it's going to use its own kind of intelligence.
Exactly. And so one of the things you'll see is this context file, you can think of as like this is the workspace context. So I can set, this is where users can set their overall kind of folk knowledge for your whole data estate or your whole workspace. And this is often where folks will put kind of additional things like this, like make sure we're always just using sampling. You can be a bit more explicit in governance. So you can actually set more explicit policies around access, quality, security, etc. These are rules that the governance agent will actually actively enforce. But that context file gets loaded in every time Bright Agent runs. So you can think of it as what's the folk knowledge or set of rules that you just always want to apply for any user in your entire workspace. Hopefully that helps Farhan, on the kind of what the historical window is for the data quality check and how partial it is. So the data quality check finished running, and we can say, okay, so when we look at this, uh, we have a number of critical downstream data sets that rely on this this data set. And when I look at, and then it explains each expectation that it wrote. This portfolio ID not null, right? That this is a critical linking variable. We got to make sure that it is not null for any of the records, right? And this asks with 100%. So we're able to see that these rules can get written dynamically, run against the warehouse, explained, and then importantly, if I want, I can turn these into a scheduled task. So I can say, all right, I actually want this data quality rule to run every night. So I can go to schedules, for example, and we've got a current data holdings, a data quality check holding that runs every day on this holdings raw table. And once they're set up, I can actually see, okay, actually there's a error in the holdings raw data quality check that I need to have resolved. So I actually want to jump to that next to say, okay, great. Bright Agent can both autonomously uh, do things like metadata generation, data quality checking, and then I can schedule and have it autonomously run. But what about it actually alerting and fixing things for me? Well, before we get there, I want to kind of build up the story a little more about a data pipeline, the data pipeline touching on this holdings raw table. So I might want to do something like this. Like let's first look at really understanding the raw holdings table to the staging holdings table. And I want to understand, what's the difference between these two? I want to investigate this data pipeline, right? So I'm going to say compare these two. Again, in the interest of time, I'm going to jump forward in time, and because some of these are longer running tasks, I'm just going to look and say, great. Um, so Bright Agent's able to do things like be able to look across warehouses, across tables, and across databases, and understand where things are in the pipeline, understand the lineage, and understand the diff. Um, it's able to say, okay, here are the shared columns. Here are the columns that get added between raw and staging. And then here are some of the things that get dropped. And these are areas where you're going to have to deal with consistency. So you should probably work on some of these consistency issues if you want to fix these this downstream staging issue. So what I can do is I can then take and as a data engineer, I can say, okay, let's actually do some modeling and update the I'm going to build another downstream table from the staging holdings nightly database. So I want a new daily portfolio exposure table built from staging holdings uh, that really shows me daily exposure per portfolio reconciled back to the kind of source holdings on every run. And I can say things like write it as a DBT modeling, following our conventions, and open a pull request. So this is what you might actually tell a data engineer to do. And notice I can say things like following our conventions. It's going to read in all of that folk knowledge from my files, from the knowledge base, as well as from the context server when it's tackling this particular task. Now, this is going to be a longer running task, so I'm going to jump ahead and see what I was able to produce. So when I ran this before, you can see, great, it's able to produce a fully functional new model in the Mart that is thoughtful. It's an incremental table. It has the source of staging holdings data set, and has some of the metrics that I described I wanted to ensure was in the model. So the ability for Bright Agent to look across the data state upstream and downstream, and not just at the narrow code base it might be working on, like a Claude Code or Codex, without the additional data context would be able to do, is a really key differentiator for what makes Bright Agent a value add on top of your agentic coding workflows. And I want to just go a click further here to say, I can do this kind of interactive code generation for a DBT model, but we all know that data really works in pipelines that are repeatable to not just one-off code. You want actually the context around a project to continue to evolve. So that is where projects come in. You can think of them similar to like Cloud Code projects, for example, but where they're really optimized for what a data project requires, a data pipeline. So you see I've got this daily portfolio exposure project, but I've been noticing that this set of errors, right, where there's this holdings raw thing. So I actually want to demonstrate how Bright Agent, when it's able to, when you have a code repository that's monitoring and a pipeline that it's actually helping run and monitor, how it can actually proactively solve and fix issues with the pipeline, like what you're seeing here in the alerts. So if I jump into this particular project, you notice it has this observability section. And here it's able to say, okay, there are 11 models that are running on this. It has a 64% success rate. And the last runs have had some failures. Um, and I can actually look in and say, okay, look, this last run failed. The stage holdings nightly model that we were working on before had a failed DBT run. Now, importantly, it's not able to just show that there was a failure. When you turn on Night Agent and have it actively monitoring, it will go in and look at that failure, look at your logs, diagnose the error, and create a fix. So here we can see Bright Agent was able to say, it looked at that failure and said, it seems that this staging holding nightly data set that we were looking at before that had that diff has the model is actually calling an invalid identifier. It's calling this settlement currency, and that's actually not what's in the upstream table. And so it was able to do a commit with a small change where it said, the way you modeled it initially, we need to update it because of a change to the upstream raw holdings table to be settled in CCY. And it is able to commit that as a PR that automatically fixes that broken data pipeline. And that is like as
Incredibly
a
powerful.
that's
huge.
a data for myself.
This is
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. Now, all right. So I know we're coming up with time. We haven't really gotten to Q&A, so I want to just
We
show a
have one
couple of
question, but
things.
I think let's continue
Oh
on
yeah,
a little bit more, and then I think maybe people's questions will come in as you get into the third last part here.
great. Yeah. So I'll just show a couple more things, right? Bright can work in messy environments, right? We've got environments where folks might be working, some of it can be done with DBT or DB Cloud, the way I just showed. Some of it might be in more like SSIS files or legacy SQL, just like sitting in folders. And importantly, Bright Agent can manage that complexity with you. For example, here's an example where you can load in old XML files, right? That have your data models described. And I can say something like, all right, using the 3 old XML files, can you go ahead and create a database schema and a new SQL script, consolidated SQL script that I might be able to use in DBT or SSMS or Azure Data Factory in the process of a migration. And Bright Agent can actually help that. It can take all that context we just showed, all of the folk knowledge it has, all of the metadata, and make smarter data engineering choices during those migrations, those cloud migrations, those shifts from like old XML to maybe DBT or other more kind of modern ways of managing data pipelines, and can work both in the cloud and on premise. And the reason for that is that we have worked really hard to make sure that our harness works where your data work happens. We've got an MCP server so that you can interact with it if you prefer to just work within Claude Code or within Codex or within Cursor. You can connect the Bright Agent MCP and interact entirely via Claude Code and do all the things I just described, have the power of the kind of agent-specific skills, the metadata management, the context management for your data state, kind of plugging in, where it can just be part of your Claude Code workflow, right? Talking with Bright Agent. It can also embed directly in your Slack or your Teams, right? So you can at Bright Agent, and I can say something like, what failed in the portfolio pipeline last night, and did you open a fix? And it'll say, great, I'm on it, calling workspace memory, looking for recent failures. and it will get to work. And all I had to do was just add it in Slack or Teams. Um, so that ability for Bright Agent to work from where you prefer to do your data work is really one of the things that we find incredibly powerful. Ability to bridge between the best of cloud data warehouses and cloud data states with local data workflows, notebooks, on-prem servers, etc. Lastly, I'll just note all of this can be deployed and is deployed in your cloud or within your network. We have a Terraform provider, so all of this, there's no multi-tenancy here. All of this gets deployed into your AWS or Azure or GCP environment uh, uh, and uh, and is not exchanging data with third-party APIs. If you're within AWS, for example, the models it's running are within your AWS Bedrock account. So even the model inference isn't happening outside of your data estate.
It's essentially getting a copy of the models for yourself is the way to think about it if you're not familiar with Bedrock. Before you wrap up the demo, Matt, can you touch on projects, please? Because this is a hugely powerful construct in the way that people work in projects together as a team of people. How did we replicate projects in an agentic workflow here?
Yeah, great question. So I shared a little bit about kind of how we use projects before, which is we've got similarly to if you're used to Cloud Code or things like that, you can build a data project, data pipeline, and within that project, so you can see here, there are things like the demo test for database creation or running a transformation. Um, and within each project, you've got kind of scoped uh, workflows. So you have a scoped agent that is specific to that project. You've got scoped schemas that you might be building against, the files that are specific to that project. So if we go to maybe something like this, um, the uh, data assets that are specific to that project. So we are working today on just the holdings, daily, P&L, et cetera. So it allows you to scope down and say, okay, yes, we've got a massive warehouse with thousands of tables, but for this data pipeline or this data product that we're trying to build out, we are just focused on these three tables and allows you to both visually and textually manage that lineage. Um,
Mhm.
you can have discussions about the data pipeline. All of the alerts happen here, all of the governance. You can set, project or asset specific rules, etc. So it's a great
And
way for you
this
and your
is
data
very
teams to
powerful.
collaborate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we launched it about a month ago. And if you think about how work happens in organizations across functions, in the marketing team and in the finance team, or in customer success or sales, and with data engineering teams, which are typically centralized and service all the functions of the business. Essentially, people are going to be in different parts of the organization, in different teams, but the data sets is shared. And a lot of times, I have a data set that is great. Matt has a data set that is great. Together, we're powerful and we're trying to bring that together. But one of us may not be, or both of us not necessarily in the data engineering space. So, what we've built in projects is a way for you to bring the shared data assets across an organization or teams into a joint place where people can collaborate. Agentically, you deploy, we have the agent, as Matt showed, that does the work for you, but you are bringing it, it's like a binder in your college days. It has all the pages, all the chapters, all the parts that you want from the data, the prompts, the governance, the PII masking so that you know this is all contained into one area and therefore our data collaboration and sharing, we're going to get to insights faster together. Okay. It's been very popular and it's really is in harmony with the way people work in the real world with shared data assets, right? We have about 6 minutes left, so this has been great. Let's look here. Farhan had a question as well, an initial question before. What is the storage impact for maintaining knowledge graph for each data lifecycle stage?
Yeah, this is a um, great, great question. Uh, that so the The nice thing is the knowledge graph itself is actually uh, fairly compact, right? The data, because it's metadata. Now, um, the way the knowledge graph by default is in Neo4j, and one thing that Neo4j, I actually was chatting with the CEO of Neo4j about this last year, that they haven't figured out time travel on graphs. Actually, this is a general problem with graph databases, is the notion of time uh, is not well characterized. And so I think one of the things you're hitting at with Farhan is that like uh, essentially managing versioning of the knowledge graph is tricky. We think of this as like subnodes um, uh, and as a way of kind of managing changes or diffs, because with a label property graph, you can essentially tag edges with time components. Um, so depending on how, uh, this is a long way of saying, depending on how you want to do your kind of your uh, data lifecycle monitoring, um, and how much of that kind of history you want to maintain in the knowledge graph. The the graph itself could grow, but what we actually do by default is have most of the diffs of the metadata stored in S3 with kind of knowledge graph pointers. So you're getting the benefit of like time travel type versioning for aspects of the data lifecycle and metadata without kind of blowing up the knowledge graph and having to do these like weird time traversals. This is, I'll say one other thing. This is actually a very good question because this is one of the big open questions with just agent memory generally. Folks are trying to solve it with hierarchical graphs. So you kind of have each timestamp be in kind of this like hierarchy, but it is actually a technically unsolved problem for agent memory generally. And we have a particular way of solving it that doesn't kind of blow up the size of the knowledge graph.
Yeah, very cool. And thank you for the question. Farhan actually was in our February webinar as well earlier this year. So nice to see your name and see you come back to see what we've been up to. Final question. Can we use multiple sources for data with multiple formats? We've had to deal with contract images attached in emails, for example. How messy can the data source get before we need human intervention?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so a few things here. One, as is unfortunately the unsatisfying answer is it depends, and it really depends a lot on on downstream use. So the good news is that both the models and as a result, Bright Agent generally are increasingly good at working with multimodal data. And our platform generally can work with any major kind of warehouse or lakehouse, and lakehouse formats can handle multi-formatted data. It doesn't all have to be tabular. It can be images, video files, etc. A big part of uh, the kind of handling of multiple formats really comes down to what the data contract is that you want on that data, right? So if you've got a bunch of images and you're ultimately wanting to produce a data pipeline that's maybe training a computer vision model, it might be one particular use of a bunch of messy image files, images attached from well, actually, I'll give a better example. This is from one of our partners in insurance, right? So you've got claims data that will have a bunch of attached files, and you want to be able to associate that claim with a customer account and be able to run an AI model against that claim to kind of auto detect certain things about it, and then have it populate that person's file. That's a very common use case in insurance. So where Bright Agent and the Brighthive platform is going to be helpful is helping you kind of build, manage, maintain that data pipeline and the particular ETL jobs, et cetera, that are necessary for turning those kind of attached images into organized data that is linked across those different tables and that like maybe S3 store or blob store where all the images go so that they don't get dropped or lost, in translation. And they are able to stay linked with the account. It's not going to be helpful in, for example, saying, "Oh, we've got to do a bunch of R&D to build our own image recognition model." That's not a good use of Bright Agent. That's actually more of you would probably want to use like Cloud Code for that to say, okay, we've got a bunch of example images. We want to build a new classifier for these images. That's a great use case for something like Codex or Cloud Code. But short answer is multiple sources, no problem. We have customers handling, thousands of sources, very varied in formats. It's really your whatever your infrastructure can handle, your data infrastructure can handle. Bright Agent almost certainly can help orchestrate it and manage the data workflows on top of that infrastructure.
That's right. Yes, and on that note, Will, can you please share the link to our calendar if you'd like to continue the conversation, book some time with us to just talk about your environment? We're happy to make time. We always give that kind of free time to just meet with us, get our opinion, show you more of the platform, answer specific questions that relate to your environment. All of this is welcome. Matt and I are passionate about this, and we understand that there's a lot of questions unanswered. An hour doesn't do justice to all that's under the hood, but at least this hopefully is giving you a very good sneak peek into where the world's going. And hopefully the Bright Agent can be part of the toolkit that you use for your data work. Thank you for making the time for us today. And we hope to see you in another webinar. As I mentioned, we are planning to do these weekly as we kick the fall, kick out into the end of the year. We always find with every webinar, we learn some great questions. We understand where people are at in their journey, and it keeps a great feedback loop. So thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening if you're in the evening time hours, a great day if you are in the United States, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.